Okay, seventh graders, hopefully you got my message. I had someone come up, but I'm not going to be able to do a Zoom at 11 o'clock today. So I'm going to quick record a video that goes over French and Indian War notes that you can kind of watch on your own. So the next Zoom will be Thursday, and I'll probably send out a couple of emails tomorrow and kind of clarify what assignments you can be working on. But hopefully you saw you saw the to-do list. So I'm going to share screen and get started on this. And like I said, you can watch this kind of on your own time. So we're going to talk about the French and Indian War. And I know that's probably confusing because we're on a unit on the Revolutionary War. But we need to talk about this war first, because essentially it's going to start some things that eventually lead to the Revolutionary War. You had an assignment the other day that was, what would they say? And you were looking at three groups of colonists. One group were the Loyalists. Okay, Loyalists would be people living in the 13 colonies who were still loyal to England. They still were loyal to the crown, to the king, and wanted to kind of follow England and still do what they said. So they would say things like, you know, we have no right to fight a war against England. They've done so much for us. They gave us land to get started. They gave us help. They protected us in this French Indian War we're going to talk about. So the Loyalists are saying, we're still on England's side. We don't want to fight them. We don't want independence. The Neutralists are this group in the middle. They're on the fence. They're like, you know, I don't know how I feel about this. I see both sides. The Loyalists are right. England has done a lot for us. But the Patriots on the other side make good points as well, that it's unfair, you know, to do things, and maybe being free from them and independent would be a good thing. And then your other group are your Patriots, who say, enough is enough. England has no right to tax us unfairly and treat us this way. They haven't done anything for us for decades. We don't need them anymore. And that fighting a war for freedom and independence is the best choice. So those are three groups of colonists with different perspectives on this Revolutionary War. So that's kind of that assignment. You can kind of check your answers if you want to, but somewhere along those lines would probably be the best ideas. Okay, so we are talking about, though, the French Indian War, also known as the 7 Years' War, which is kind of confusing because the dates I'm going to show you are longer than 7 years. But this war was fought between the English and the French on 3 or 4 different continents all over the world. What happened in North America is called the French and Indian War. So essentially, England is fighting the French, who have a lot of Indian allies on their side. Okay, so France versus England. And these two countries have a feud going way, way back. They've always kind of been competing against each other for different things. So them fighting each other and kind of not getting along is nothing new. But this one is going to be especially impactful down the road as far as the Revolutionary War. So here's the colonies in the 1750s. Okay, so the map on the left, okay, the different shaded colors. All the yellow is British colonies, okay? Those are the 13 original colonies we talked about over the last few weeks. The green area is French territory, okay? That all belongs to the French. Pink is Spain. And if you look in here, it's kind of tough to see, but there's an area called, it says disputed, okay? It's the map over here, this kind of the lined section here. So disputed means, in this case, both the French and English feel like this is their area. All right, so land is going to be the major issue here. So both the English and French feel like it's theirs. You have English colonists who, population-wise, are growing and growing. So colonists want to continually push west and settle in this area. Well, the further west they go, the further into French territory they go, and these boundaries become blurred, and that's going to be a major problem between the French and the British. So we have England, okay, who has not very much land, but they have the most people, like 20 million at this time. You have France, who has a ton of land, but some people, about 1.5 million. And then Spain, who has quite a bit of land, but hardly any people, hardly any colonists or settlers in this region. Okay, so the conflict is between England and France. We talk about Spain because some of their land is going to get shuffled to other people, and they're going to gain some territory as well. So those are the kind of the three players in the game, so to say. All of them wanted one thing. They wanted North America to themselves. So selfishly, they wanted North America. They knew the value of its resources, and didn't want the other countries there claiming anything. So here's kind of this disputed area. It's the Ohio River Valley. All right, you have English colonists who are starting to settle and set up homes in this region to farm, and are starting to get into French territory. France said it was theirs. They valued this region for fur and trading. The English said it was theirs. They wanted it for farming and just room for people. And you can probably guess what happens next. So a war essentially starts. Take a guess who this picture is. I bet you'll never guess. The French, to try and stop the English from getting further into their territory, start to build forts. Okay, so like if you build a fort on it, like it's like you're kind of saying this is ours. So in response, the English don't appreciate it and feel like they're getting too close. So the English send in this man and some troops. This is George Washington, 21 years old. George Washington is sent in to essentially kick out the French. Okay, is the job that he is given. So it's kind of interesting. George Washington is fighting for the British, and 20 years down the road, he will be fighting against the British with the colonies. So George Washington goes in, and essentially that starts a conflict. There's a little skirmish, shots are fired, and the French and the English are fighting a war in North America. The name is confusing. Okay, I kind of explained it to begin with. So essentially, the two sides, you have the British Army and some Native Americans versus the French and a lot of Native Americans. The French promised Indian settlements and payments and money if they would fight on their side. So most American Indians sided with the French in this particular war. Okay, so again, we consider the British Army with the colonists versus the French and American Indians who had sided with them. Early on, it did not go well for the British. Humiliating defeats, and George Washington was at the heart of them. 1754, Fort Necessity. Washington loses a third of his men and is forced to abandon that fort. Next year, Fort Duquesne. Nearly 2/3 of the British were killed, and they won that one. So after about 2 years, the British are like, all right, we have to make a change. One, we're going to have to spend a lot more money. Remember that. Spend a lot more money. Remember that. And they're going to send in a lot more troops, like shipload after shipload from England, like ships by the thousands. They're sending these troops over. And as a result of spending more money and sending more troops, the tide does start to change, and the British start to take over. A few major battles. The British start to win. You can kind of see some different wins up here. They eventually get up into Quebec and Montreal with some victories along the St. Lawrence River up in Canada. And those are major victories for the British. The war ends in 1763. The British defeats the French, so England wins the war. The terms of the surrender are outlined in the Treaty of Paris. And essentially what happens is a big land reapportionment. Okay, so the first maps that I showed you at the beginning, and so if you look at these maps and how land is divided up and divvied up among England, France, and Spain, are going to change a lot. Okay, so what does it look like afterwards? Here you go. On the left is the before, okay? On the right is the after, okay? So look at all the purple on the right map. That is now British territory, okay? Essentially from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River and all the way up into Canada. This is Louisiana, which if you know anything about American history, there's going to come a time where the Louisiana Purchase, where we purchased the rest of this from France, and that would really signal France being completely removed. Okay, but all this disputed territory and then some goes to the hands of the British. Um, so you can see where that really changes things in terms of the landscape. So again, why are we talking about a war? Well, here's why. So one, France gives up all of its land in North America, so they're kicked out, okay, which is good for the English. Most of the land in the Americas is now in the hands of England and Spain. Okay, are pretty much the only two that are left. Native American tribes are not recognized in European land claims, so there's no specific land that's designated to Native American tribes. So it really starts our policies toward Native Americans of taking their land away and not giving them anything. There's no reservations at this time. The Europeans are just saying, this is our land. You need to leave or live here peacefully. Here's the big one. England is in debt. Remember I said one of their changes early in the war is to spend a lot more money. Well, it puts them in debt. Okay, war is expensive, whether you're fighting it in the 1750s or in 2020. War is expensive, so remember that. Increased tensions and distrust between England and its American colonies. Here's where it starts. Okay, so if you remember last week, I talked about the roller coaster, right? Like to get to the Revolutionary War, we're on a roller coaster. And the first part of a roller coaster is you start here, and then it's a gradual buildup. Okay, right now we're on the gradual buildup. French-Indian War is over, and we're starting an ascent. Okay, so tension and distrust between England and its American colonies are going to grow. And as we go up this roller coaster, there's going to be different events along the way that are just going to make it even worse between the King of England and Parliament and the American colonies. And that eventually gets to a point where we'll fight a war against England for independence. So the biggest, again, you talk about the land redistribution is a big deal, but this increased tension and England's debt are big factors that we're going to talk about in terms of events coming down the road. So there is that. Again, a short lesson on that. I wanted to jump over to Canvas. And there's nothing up there as far as other assignments. I'll get those up later today. So again, if you would just make sure your vocab assignment is in for Revolutionary War vocab, and then the what would they say assignments, you're all caught up. Watch this video, be good, and then we'll touch base on Thursday as far as a Zoom meeting, but be looking for some emails from me as far as other stuff as well. So sorry for the change of plans. I had something come up and gotta take care of something else. So thanks for being flexible. Thanks for being patient. Hope you're enjoying the nice weather, and we'll check in on Thursday.